Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Teen Traffic Safety and the Highway Bill Overview Updates and Next Steps webinar. We're very excited to have you join us today. And for this discussion, we have some experts who will be sharing some information that we think you will find very useful in the work that you're doing. We have representatives from SAD, Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety, and the National Safety Council. Our presenters today, this is Sandy Spavone from NOYS, National Organizations for Youth Safety. We have John Terry, who will be joining us representing SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions, Luke George from National Safety Council, and Cathy Chase from Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety. Couple of things that we want to cover with you. Are going to be moving ahead in the progress in the 21st Century Act. Some of the things you already know are that MAP 21 Highway Bill, or some call the Transportation Bill, it's called, some people did call it different things, was signed into law July 6, 2012. This bill, though, expires in less than 24 months, October 1, 2014. But we are excited that it does set a national safety agenda and funds highway construction and safety programs. So as we go throughout this webinar, you'll have a chance to submit questions. So if you look on your screen there's a spot there where you can type in questions, and we'll respond to those questions at the end of the webinar. And we also want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be archived, so that we'll be able to share a link with you. We'll have it on the NOYS website, in the Notable NOYS newsletter, and I'm sure our partners who are presenting today will also be sharing this with their membership as well. So we hope that you find this useful, and that as you think of questions, that you submit those to us, and then we'll answer all of them at the end. The three sections of the bill that we'll be talking about specifically that deal with teen traffic safety are the Teen Traffic Safety Program, the Distracted Driving Incentive Grants, and the Graduated Driver's Licensing GDO Incentive Grants. So those are the ones that are most important to many of our member organizations and groups that focus on teen traffic safety. So our first presenter today is John Terry, representing Students Against Destructive Decisions. So please welcome John.
Great, thank you, Sandy, and thank you everyone for taking the time to participate in today's webinar. We had over 300 people register, so I'm thankful that there's interest in this important issue. My name is John Terry. I'm an advocacy consultant for SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions. SAD is a national network and delivery system of peer-to-peer education and prevention programs. There's SAD chapters in about 10,000 middle and high schools across the country. SAD is based up in Massachusetts, just outside Boston, but I'm here in Washington, D.C., and work on government relations and advocacy for SAD. And I'm going to focus on the new Teen Traffic Safety Program that was included in MAP 21 and signed into law, and that SAD took a leadership role in making sure was included in the bill. Sandy, I'm trying to advance it one slide. It wasn't, oh, there we go. So before I provide details on the new program, I wanted just to give a quick bit of background on how we got started on this effort. We all know the horrible risks that teens face on the road. Car crashes are the #1 killer of teens in this country, and mile for mile, teens are 3 times as likely to be involved in a fatal crash than all other drivers. So about 3 years ago, when we looked at the federal government's response to this crisis, we were extremely disappointed. Before MAP 21 was signed into law this summer, the last time Congress passed a highway bill was back in 2005, and that bill had the name of Safety Lou. And we just took that bill and we scanned it. It was about a 600-page bill just to see which risk groups groups of people were getting the most attention, which ones were prioritized. And we found that teens were virtually ignored in that document. As a matter of fact, the word teen or young or student driver only appeared twice in the entire document, while other categories of high-risk populations, such as motorcyclists and bicyclists, appeared literally hundreds of times, and literally millions of dollars of new safety programs and task forces and initiatives were steered towards these other populations. Essentially, teen drivers were getting no attention. Also at the same time, when a NHTSA official was asked at a Senate hearing exactly how much they spent specifically on the safety of teen drivers, their answer was $2 million, which accounts for 0.2%, which is 1/5 of 1% of their budget. Knowing that teens account for more than 10% of traffic fatalities, this is a tragic oversight, and we decided and were very committed at the time to make teen safety a higher priority to the federal government, and we took our message to Capitol Hill. Thankfully, when we went to the Hill, people agreed with us. And as a matter of fact, Congressman Michael Capuano of Massachusetts and Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's on your screen now, along with Senator Byron Dorgan of North Dakota, they all agreed to introduce legislation that would provide states with a funding stream specifically to focus on the safety of teen drivers. The photo on your screen now is Senator Amy Klobuchar in the middle. And this picture was taken when she was at Tartan High School outside of Minneapolis, and she was announcing her intention to introduce what she called the STARS Act, the Students Taking Action for Road Safety Act. And she's joined there by Penny Wells on the left, who's head of SAD, and David Strickland, the NHTSA administrator, along with some SAD teens. The good news is that Senator Klobuchar was able to get a chunk of the STARS Act into MAP 21 and sign into law. The bad news, or not quite so great news, is that teen traffic safety is still not a requirement, and there is still not a funding stream specifically and solely focused on teen safety programs. However, teen traffic safety has been added as a new priority under an existing grant program, and that is a huge achievement and something that I want to focus my remaining remarks on. So on your screen now is a copy of the bill language that was signed into law, and I've circled some important words, and those words are shall and may. And essentially, if you start at the top of the page there, it says Teen Traffic Safety Program, Section 402, which I'll get to in a second. That's the existing funding stream that we've been added to. So Section 402 is amended by adding at the following: a Teen Traffic Safety Program. It says, subject to the requirement of the state's highway safety plan, a state may use a portion of the amounts. So essentially, may is not a requirement. It's an option. So what it's doing, it's giving states the option of using some of their funding from this existing funding stream to focus on, and then the bill continues, a statewide teen traffic safety program to improve traffic safety for teen drivers. It says the program implemented, actually go back one if you could. It says the program implemented under paragraph 1 shall include peer-to-peer. So this is saying that if a state chooses to focus on teen traffic safety program, it must include a peer-to-peer component. And peer-to-peer is just the radical idea that you need to work with teen themselves in providing safety programming. So states that choose to go this route, which we obviously are encouraging them to do, they'll need to empower teens, train them, and engage them to help influence the behavior of their fellow teens. Peer-to-peer programs are powerful and effective and are a critical component of any effort to improve teen driving behavior. So now hit the next page, please. The bill then goes on to say, of the program that must include peer-to-peer, it also may include, and then the bill lists about 10 different suggested activities that the state could focus on, and we were made sure that this language was very heavy on states, again, working with teens themselves. So you'll see, as an example, the first option would be working with student-led groups and school advisors. The second option is providing sub-grants to schools throughout the state to start and expand student groups focused on teen safety. And further on down, you see another option is establishing state or regional advisory councils comprised of teen drivers to provide input and recommendations to the governor on issues related to the safety of teen drivers. And finally, funding a coordinator position for the teen safety program in the state or region. So those are a list of options for states. In addition to the peer-to-peer component, the bill is just laying out clearly the types of components that could be included in that. Okay, next slide. I mentioned earlier the Section 402 program, and this is the program that language that I just outlined. Essentially, those were the 3 pages of MAP 21 that we're so excited about. It was 3 years of work for 3 pages of legislation, which I'll take. It was a huge step in the right direction. But essentially, what those pages have been added to is the Section 402 grant program, which is an existing grant program. It's officially known as the State and Community Highway Safety Grant Program. Last year it was funded at about $234 million. And every state gets some level of funding depending on the size of the state. So as an example, Texas gets $17 million to the program, Illinois gets around $8 million, and the lowest amount that's given out is $1.8 million. So if you're a state like South Dakota, your state gets about $1.8 million. And that funding is controlled by the State Highway Safety Office and also the State Highway Safety Plan. Next slide. The big picture, the takeaway from this is that for the first time, the transportation bill has a specific mention of teen traffic safety, and it also highlights the importance of peer-to-peer programs. We think both those things are important, both the mention of the teen traffic safety and also the importance of the peer-to-peer program, the importance of partnering with teens. Teen traffic safety specifically is listed as a priority under the existing Section 402 grant program. However, it does not require states to spend funding on this category. Every state, so everyone listening now in your state does get funding through Section 402. But now the work will turn to convincing your state to take advantage of this new language and to dedicate funds to teen traffic safety in your state highway safety plan. Next slide. Some next steps and things I will encourage you to do, and at the end of this, you'll be given all our email addresses, and I'd love to provide you with resources and directions on this. But as I look ahead over the next year, next July is when your state must submit highway safety plans. So starting now would be a great time to start trying to influence those, meeting with them, meeting with your state highway safety office, making sure they're aware of this language. They work on a lot of different issues related to safety. They might not be aware that this language has been specifically added. In the past, some states were hesitant to focus specifically on teens because it was not specifically mentioned in the legislation. They don't have that excuse anymore. And these offices need to be provided with specific examples of the types of things that can be supported in your state. And also just kind of, again, looking kind of long-term, this is particularly important because as Congress over the next couple of years will start writing the new highway bill, we're going to have to go up and show them that states are taking advantage of this new language, and this is language that they want and that they're going to steer funding towards. Okay? Next slide. One resource, I would refer you to the Governor's Highway Safety Association. They've got great resources specifically around state highway safety offices. If you want to know who in your state is controlling the Section 402 money, If you go to this website, and again, when we send you a copy of the presentation, you'll be able to just click on that link. It pulls you up to a page that lists all the states where you can be brought to your state highway safety office, and also it'll pull up a list of your state's strategic highway safety plan. So you can look at the existing plan, and I just encourage you to pull that up, search for the word teen, and see if your state is currently focusing on this population and working with them, meeting with them, and providing resources on the need to steer funding more towards the safety of teen drivers. Okay, next. And that is my email address. So again, I encourage you to contact me for additional resources or information and examples of what you're doing at your state to make sure that states steer, make sure they take advantage of this new language. Thank you.
So our next next presenter is Luke George from the National Safety Council.
Great, thank you, Sandy, and thank you for hosting the webinar and for all of you for participating here today. I'm going to spend some time talking about the distracted driving provisions that are included in MAP 21. And I'll start off with a little background information on distracted driving and why the National Safety Council has made the issue one of our strategic focus areas. And then I'll move on to discuss the distracted driving incentive grant provisions contained in the legislation, the steps states need to take to be eligible for the distracted driving incentive grants, and then conclude by talking about some steps that all of you can take as advocates to improve distracted driving laws in your state. Go to the next slide. Go one more slide. Great. So to start off, a little background on the National Safety Council. We're a 100-year-old congressionally chartered nonprofit organization dedicated to preventing unintentional injuries and deaths at work, in homes and communities, and on the roads through leadership, research, education, and advocacy. And we fulfill our mission by partnering with businesses, with elected officials, and the public to make an impact where the most preventable injuries and deaths occur. And presently, 2 of our 5 strategic initiative areas focus on transportation safety issues, those being teen safe driving and distracted driving. In 2009, we became the first national organization to call for a complete ban on all cell phone use while driving. And we made this recommendation based on the overwhelming scientific evidence that shows that cell phone use while driving, both handheld and hands-free, is dangerous. So when you look at how likely an activity is to cause a motor vehicle crash, you have to look at both how risky the activity is and how many people are engaging in the activity at any given time. So studies show that texting while driving increases a driver's crash risk 8 to 23%. And talking on a cell phone, having a cell phone conversation while driving, increases a driver's crash risk by 4%. However, when you look at the prevalence or the number of people engaging in these activities, NHTSA studies show that 9% of all drivers are talking on a cell phone at any given time, and 0.9% of drivers are texting or manipulating their cell phone while driving. So based on this information, the National Safety Council estimates that at least 24% of all crashes involve cell phone use. And at least 21% of those crashes involve cell phone conversations, and 3% involve crashes related to texting or manipulating a cell phone behind the wheel. And clearly, teens are our most inexperienced drivers. So when you combine their inexperience with driving and the distractions caused by a cell phone, it's just a deadly combination. And for this reason, MAP 21 includes an incentive grant program that incentivizes states to pass a total cell phone ban for teen drivers and a texting ban for all drivers. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that there are 2 incentive grant programs that deal with distracted driving in MAP 21. The main one, which I'm going to be speaking about, is the main distracted driving incentive grant program. And there are also distracted driving component to the GDL incentive grant program, which Cathy will be speaking about later in this webinar. States can apply both for the distracted driving incentive grant and the GDL incentive grant if they meet the minimum requirements called for in both of those grant programs. Next slide. So for the main distracted driving incentive grant program, there are three main components to the $22.5 million distracted driving grant program. The main component is an $11.9 million incentive grant for states that pass a total cell phone ban for teen drivers under the age of 18 and a texting ban for drivers of all ages. In order to qualify for the incentive grant funding, the texting ban and the teen cell phone ban has to be primary enforcement, meaning that a law enforcement officer can pull you over, teen over solely for talking on the cell phone, or a driver of any age pull them over for simply texting while driving. They don't have to have another traffic infraction to be pulled over. There needs to be a minimum fine for the first violation and increasing fines for each subsequent violation. And distracted driving issues need to be tested as part of the state's driver licensing examination process. If a state doesn't qualify for this $11.9 million component of the distracted driving incentive grant provision, for 2013 only, there's a $5.6 million incentive grant provision for states that have passed a texting ban prior to the enactment of MAP 21, which was the first week of July. For those states, they can apply for this grant. The requirements are less stringent, and they just need to have a texting ban, but it needs to be primary enforcement. And then the final component of the distracted driving incentive grant is a $5 million NHTSA public education campaign. And this campaign is going to be a lot similar to campaigns that you've probably seen before for drunk driving or seatbelt use, where it will be a campaign to educate drivers on the risk of distracted driving, as well as to focus on enforcement mechanisms for texting and cell phone use for teen drivers. So the next slide. So we've talked about the provisions that states need to enact in order to be eligible for incentive grant funding. Let's talk a little bit about the process for applying for the grant. NHTSA issued a notice of funding availability in August. The deadline for states to apply for the distracted driving incentive grant was extended to February 28th of 2013. And the deadline for states to apply for FY14 grants will be July 1st, 2013. So you can see you have a really short window here. Most state legislatures come into session in January or February for states to improve their distracted driving laws to be able to qualify for the FY13 or the FY14 incentive grant funding. Next slide. So here on these slides, you can see how the different states compare and what changes they would need to make in order to be eligible for the incentive grant funding. So we can move to the next slide. You can see that states that have, are fully qualified for the larger distracted driving incentive grant are colored in green. Those states that are colored in yellow are states that would are eligible for the texting incentive grant, but are not yet eligible for the full incentive grant funding. And those states that are in red are states that are not eligible for either incentive grant. So we can go ahead to the next slide. And the slide after that. And one more. So here you can look and see your state and what you need to do to qualify. And if we can just move one more after this slide. So just to conclude, talk about ways that you can be involved to help improve distracted driving laws in your state. First thing I'd recommend is that you sign up for NSC advocacy alerts at our advocacy website, which is capwiz.com/NSC. When you go to that site, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can sign up for our advocacy alerts and e-updates. If you sign up for our advocacy alerts, we can contact you at key points in the legislative process if your state legislature takes up legislation dealing with teen safe driving or distracted driving. Our advocacy website also allows you to identify your elected officials, both at the federal and state level. And when legislation is moving in the states, it will also allow you to send a customized letter to your state representative asking them to support a distracted driving bill or a teen safe driving bill. So it's a great way for you to learn what's going on in your state and to be able to quickly contact your elected officials as legislation is moving through the legislative process. It also has an option to allow you to easily email your friends and your family members to encourage them to get involved in the advocacy process, as well as to share advocacy alerts through social media on your Facebook wall or via Twitter. So it's a great way to really get our message out quickly to engage advocates and get your friends and family involved in the legislative process. Next thing I'd recommend is that you meet with your state legislators. Most states are starting a new session in January, so it's a great time to be able to reach out to your legislative members, encourage them to either support legislation in the state dealing with distracted driving or team safe driving, or to encourage them to introduce legislation if a bill hasn't been introduced in your state. And be sure to discuss the federal incentive grant funding that's available to the states if they choose to update their distracted driving law or to improve their teen graduated driver licensing law. And then finally, I'd encourage you to use all of us here, the panelists today, as resources. So if you're looking to testify at a hearing in the state legislature and you need facts and statistics, or you're writing letters to your representative or trying to get them to introduce a piece of legislation, please feel free to reach out to us as a resource to help provide you with information and anything that you need to help improve your advocacy efforts in the states. So my contact information is here on the screen, and look forward to taking questions at the end of our session. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. That was fantastic. Our next speaker is Cathy Chase from Advocates for Highway Safety, and she'll be sharing some more information about graduated driver's licensing incentive grant programs, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end of this session.
Thanks, Sandy. This is Cathy Chase, as she just said, and I'm the Senior Director of Government Affairs with Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety. I'd like to thank Sandy and NOYS for hosting this webinar, and say thank you also to my co-panelists, John and Luke, for this opportunity. For those of you not familiar with Advocates, we are a broad-based coalition of consumer health and safety groups working together with insurance companies and agents to advance safety issues both in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country. We base which issues we get involved with dependent upon research and data, which is why we have been working to improve the safety of teenage drivers for many years. Most recently on this issue, we've been involved with advocating for the Safe Teen and Novice Driver Uniform Protection Act, that just rolls right off your tongue there, but also known as the Stand Up Act. Next slide, please. Thank you. As John touched upon earlier, motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death for teens in every state, and it breaks down who is killed in these types of crashes in the next bullet. And as I just mentioned, we've been working on the Stand Up Act, and part of that was leading a coalition called SafeRoadsForTeens.org. And again, I'd like to thank NOYS, SAD, the National Safety Council, and many others who I'm sure are on this call for their critical involvement in that effort. Everyone's contributions, together with great congressional leadership, excuse me, led to the major provisions from Stand Up being included in MAP 21. Another thing that Advocates does is publishes an annual roadmap to Highway Safety Laws report, and our 10th report will be coming out in January, just in time for the state legislatures to hopefully act upon what their states are lacking and get some of these laws passed. If you're interested in seeing the 2012 version, it's on our website, which is saferoads.org. Have the next slide, please. Now I'd like to get into the nuts and bolts of what from Stand Up was included in MAP 21. First, what must be included in a state law is there must be a two-stage licensing process, which includes a learner's permit and an intermediate stage, and these restrictions must apply through age 17 or up to age 18. Next slide, please. The learner's permit stage must last at least 6 months or until age 18. And for drivers who get their learner's permit before 16, the permit stage must remain in effect until the driver reaches age 16. And as Luke mentioned before, it must also prohibit the use of non-emergency electronic devices while driving. And I just wanted to add a note that about why some other provisions were not included in the learner's permit stage. And it's because most states generally already require drivers in this stage to have a licensed driver over 21 years old. So the law does not require nighttime driving or passenger restrictions during this stage. Next slide, please. During the intermediate stage, the state The state must have a law that requires the intermediate stage to start right after the learner's permit, and it must not start any earlier than age 16, last for at least 6 months, and remain in effect until age 18. It only allows for one non-family member under the age of 21, unless there is a licensed driver who's at least 21 in the vehicle. And similar to the learner's permit, it must prohibit the use of any non-emergency electronic devices. It does require a restriction of nighttime driving, but the scope of the restriction is left to the discretion of the U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary, which will be addressed in a rulemaking that, as you'll see, the notice of proposed rulemaking closed on October 25th, so we're hoping that the Secretary's office will be providing some guidance to the states soon so that they can start drafting these bills. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so I just covered the provisions that must be in these laws. The rest are up to the rest of these provisions that I'll now cover are left to the discretion of the Secretary. In the learner's permit stage, at least 40 hours of behind-the-wheel training, a driver training course, or a requirement that the driver be supervised by a licensed driver who is at least 21. And in the learner's permit or the intermediate stage, the Secretary can decide if, in addition to any other penalties by state law, a requirement that the grant of an unrestricted license be delayed for anyone who breaks driving-related offenses laws, including driving while intoxicated, misrepresentation of age, reckless driving, driving without being belted, speeding, or any driving-related offense as deemed by the Secretary. Next slide, please. There is an exception to this provision, which states that if a state otherwise meets these minimum requirements, they will be deemed in compliance if they have enacted a law before January 1st, 2011, that allows licensees or applicants younger than 18 to drive a motor vehicle in connection with work performed on a family farm, or if demonstrable hardship would result in the denial of the license. Next slide, please. So now, how can the money that the states will be awarded be used? MAP 21 requires that at least 25% be used for these provisions, which include enforcing GDL laws, training law enforcement personnel and other relevant state agency personnel relating to the enforcement of GDL, publishing relevant educational materials, carrying out other administrative activities that the Secretary considers relevant to GDL, and carrying out a teen traffic safety program, which was mentioned before by John, and can include peer-to-peer education and prevention strategies in schools and communities. Next slide, thank you. The remaining up to 75% may be used for any eligible project activity under Section 402. And then I just listed some of the options, which are reducing injury and death caused by speeding vehicles, encouraging the proper use of occupant protection devices, reducing impaired driving, motorcycle, school bus, and distracted driving crashes, and improving law enforcement services in crash prevention, traffic supervision, and post-crash procedures. Next slide. The next two slides are a chart, which will be available for your review in more detail. I'm not going to go over each state, but just in our analysis of where the states currently stand. And again, this is pending the final rulemaking by the Secretary. Next slide. And slide after that. And what are the next steps? I agree with everything that Luke previously said. I thought he had some excellent points that he made. I'd like to just potentially add to them. first, in order to get these GDL laws passed, look at the chart and see what your state is lacking. And then contact your elected officials and ask them to sponsor a MAP 21 eligible state GDL law. And then hopefully you'll be successful in finding a very powerful and interested sponsor, and you can work together to build support for the bill. One thing that advocates have found helpful, and as I'm sure many other groups on this call, is garnering media attention by holding press events, generating letters to the editor of the local and state papers, and then also using social media to build support, which we have also used to help identify teen survivors who are interested in doing something to prevent other crashes. Once a bill is introduced, hopefully the legislator will push, but if not, you can request a hearing on the bill and make sure that the safety community is properly represented both in attending and also submitting written testimony on a bill. And as I'm sure many of us on the call already know, working together with other teens and teen groups to generate grassroots support for the bill is really a vital component of getting a law passed. And last slide. Here's my contact information. If I can ever be of assistance to anyone in their efforts, I am glad to do anything that we can. And thank you so much again.
Thank you, Cathy. I have unmuted all of our panelist speakers, and we'll go through the process now of answering the questions that have been submitted. We do have several questions, so we'll go through and try and answer all of those. I will state what the question is and then open it up to the panelists to respond so that it captures it as we're recording this for all who will be listening to this later. The first question that we have is, will the PowerPoint slides be available? They have been recorded and they will be archived. They will be on the NOYS website in the Notable NOYS newsletter, and I'm sure all three of our panelists will make sure that they're available to their membership as well. So that will be something that you can use as a resource. Our next question is, what is the latest figure for teen highway deaths per year in the U.S.?
The latest figure, this is Cathy Chase, that I had, that in 2010, for just teens being killed, or for anyone being killed in a crash involving young drivers?
They just asked latest figure for teen highway deaths per year in the U.S., so I would assume teen fatalities.
Okay.
Which the CDC has that listed, if you want to refer to that, in 2010, which would be the latest that we have, ages 16 to 19, we had 2,700 16 to 19-year-olds that were killed, which was an average of 7 per day. So we still have a huge epidemic. The CDC still lists it as the leading cause of death for teens in the United States. So I know some people will crunch those numbers a bit differently, as Cathy was referring to, crashes that include the teen driver. There's also statistics on some of the lower ages, since some states allow their teens to start driving at a lower age, but the CDC averages those out at ages 16 to 19.
And if it,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. And also, just to reiterate, to expand upon what you said, Sandy, in 2010, 5,021 people were killed in crashes involving young drivers.
Yeah, so those are really bad statistics that we're all working together, and we believe that this new bill provides some great resources for us to help us work on this issue. The next question is, based on the wording where the law says that states may use the funds, can this be interpreted that the states can use those funds for anything, including programs other than teen safety programs? And if so, are we planning any type of state-specific campaigns to insist the state use those funds for teen programs?
I assume they're referring to the teen safety program, and what this language does, it adds this onto the list of priorities for the existing 402 program. So as I said, there's not a requirement that states spend this funding on teen safety. There's other priorities listed in the 402 program that they continue to fund, but it's our hope that we can work with the states and convince them to fund this new priority. And if they choose to focus on teens, the legislation's clear that it has to include a peer-to-peer component, and then it provides examples of other things that the state can do.
Okay, and then our next question is, are there any grant opportunities for in-vehicle video technologies, example, drive cam?
No, I don't
Not,
believe there are. Go ahead, John, were you going to say something?
No, I was saying in my section, no.
There are none in the distracted driving incentive grant either.
And no, I don't believe in GDL either.
Okay. The next question is, Florida has included teen drivers in our 2012 SHSP update. We have a state representative who is working on an electronic devices ban for novice drivers under 18, hoping to include passenger restrictions in the language. I'm a member of the teen driver team and chair of the distracted driving emphasis area team. Both areas address increased GDL requirements. So that was some information about what's going on in Florida. So if we have partners on the call who would like to help support those efforts and get involved with that, that would be a great way to work together on that. Luke, this is for you. What is NSC's efforts to explore technology solutions to prohibit distracted driving?
Well, we support technology solutions. We think that may be one of the ways, maybe quicker than legislation, to be able to address the problem. So we support any technology that would be implemented that could help stop distracted driving. There are a lot of promising technologies that are out there. Many of them aren't quite as precise as we'd like, but there's solutions out there where if you have a teen driver and you don't want them using the cell phone while they're driving, you can set up a program where they're going over a certain speed, the cell phone won't allow them to receive a call, or they can't make a call. There are override features in a lot of the different programs and software that's out there. So if they override it, there could be an alert that would go back to the parents, letting them know that they've override the system. So as a parent, you can know if they're driving at that time, or maybe they're on a public transportation where that wouldn't be an issue. And one of the areas that we're really focused on at the council is getting employers to enact total cell phone policies, and we believe technology will be is a great instrument to help enforce employer policies as well. So we fully support technology solutions to the problem, and we think that's one of the ways we'll be able to address distracted driving going forward.
Now I'll open that up to advocates and SAD, if either of the panelists would like to make a comment on that question too.
No, I think you nailed it.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. The next question is, how can Section 402 help companies that produce smartphone apps that prevent texting and using phone while driving, phone use blockage software?
Again, if this is, again regarding 402, in the provision that I highlighted, it's not specifically mentioned in there. It's more of, really focused on working and engaging teens. So, it's not specifically mentioned in the legislation. If that's part of an effective solution to this, and it's something, that teens can be encouraging other teens to use, then I think it should be a part of kind of an effort to reach out to these peer-to-peer organizations and other teen organizations just to inform them, and they can be a part of any, as each of the states now, the real work is going to move to each state now. Now that we've got this language in the national bill, as each of the panelists talk about, the work's going to be at the state level. The cool thing about specifically the teen safety program, it's not going to take some of the other stuff is going to take change of laws to get done, and it's usually a little easier to get your highway safety plan changed. So, this is going to be a fight that we're going to have, in every state. And if you think that is a critical component, it's going to have to be, there's work to be done at the state level to get that included in either your state plan or specifically as part of the information and engagement process as you work with teens.
And this is Sandy from NOYS. I'd just like to say that for those of you that are on the call who are interested in finding teens in your state that would be willing to serve as advocates for teen driver safety and for these issues, through our membership outreach, we can connect you to teens in every state who are very interested, and this is part of who they are and what they do. And we'd be happy to make that connection for you to include them in the advocacy efforts. They can go and definitely we've had teens go and testify even on these issues. So including them in the work is really important. Our next question is specifically directed about the GDL Grant Incentive Program. And it is, what is the significance of the reference to age 21 in the GDL Grant Incentive Program?
I can speculate on that. I obviously didn't draft the legislation, but I think it's just, as a society, seen as a demarcation of perhaps their level of maturity. I understand and appreciate that, that might not be the case with all, but there needed to be some age of, I guess, identifying the next group of more mature drivers who would be in a vehicle overseeing a younger teen driver.
The next question is, if your state traffic safety office already supports peer-to-peer programs at a minimal level, what are some best practices to encourage them to increase their support?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. And one of the things SAD has done and partnering with these other organizations that Sandy mentioned that are also members of NOYS, we've sent letters to all the state highway safety offices that outline best practices. And what that really is it lists those 10 things that were listed in the bill. Those essentially are, ideas that we think are best practices. Such thing as the sub-grant, the small mini grants to schools just to help, get these things off the ground. A state coordinator, a plug out to all the SAD state coordinators out there who, as Sandy mentions, there needs to be this delivery system and infrastructure across the country to mobilize teens, in order to train them and engage them, and so that they, in their individual schools, they're the ones leading the way and promoting messaging and speaking to their other students about safety. So the list of those 10 things that were included in the legislation, we consider those best practices, and they were included. That's one of the resources that I want to share with folks. When you send me an email, when you reach out to me, or as we continue to reach out, I'm happy to share with you, examples of letters that we've already sent to all the state highway safety offices. We have templates of letters that we can give you for you to send or to include when you go meet that highlight those things.
Fantastic question. The next question may be challenging, but we'll see if our panelists have the answer for this one. The next question is, what are some of the global numbers for distracted driving?
This is John, and I have no idea.
This is Jeopardy, so let's see. I am not sure either. We can definitely look that up. I know that it's varied throughout the different countries. We actually have a Fulbright scholar at NOYS with us currently from Bulgaria, and he is shocked at the use of phones here in the U.S. He said that it just doesn't happen in Bulgaria, but he says that our roads are too good, that in Bulgaria the roads are so bad you would never even dream of using your phone while you're driving. So I think it's different based on the access to phones and etc. And I'm not sure that I have seen that calculation done, but we are having a distracted driving summit on the 3rd, and we'll see if we have an answer to that from some of the experts who come there. But good question. The next question is in New York, teen drivers get an unrestricted license at 17 versus 18 if they attend a high school driver education program. Would New York have to eliminate that loophole in order to qualify for the grant money?
Yes.
And the answer to that, I'm not sure everyone heard you, Cathy, was yes.
Yes.
Yes, they would have to make that
As far as I understand it, yes.
Okay.
That's our understanding to National Safety Council as well.
Okay. And then the next question is, can any of this grant money be used to mandate a credit-bearing school driver's education program?
This is John. Not through my provision has nothing. No, it has nothing related to that.
Cathy, does any of the GDL have any place where that might fit?
Can you just repeat that again?
Sure. The question is, can any of this grant money be used to mandate a credit-bearing school driver's education program?
To mandate? I don't believe to mandate it.
Okay. And this question is, peer-to-peer programs can be supported either by the 402 or the GDL program. The question is, if you fund the peer-to-peer program under GDL, does it have to follow the same rules as the 402 peer-to-peer program? I can repeat.
I believe it does. It's in the GDL language. It has a list of uses of the funding. So if the state gets qualifies for the funding, they get funding, and one of the options just says the new 402M language. So you just refer over to the section of the bill that I showed.
I agree.
And we've really seen some teams do some great work on peer-to-peer education on the new GDLs that are introduced in their state. So it's a great method to get the word out about what the new GDLs are in the state too. The next question is, will any of the Section 402 grants be available for nonprofits to apply for directly through NHTSA, or are the funds being block granted to the individual state transportation safety agencies?
As far as my section, the teen traffic safety section, it would be the same way 402 has been distributed in the past. So all the ways that the NHTSA just subgrants or provides the funding to each state. If you look on that website I provided, it gives the amount provided to each state. So I'm not aware of any kind of direct funding opportunities through NHTSA. There may be, some sort of national program activity, a certain small percentage, but, the program's designed to go to the states, and then the states fund the programs identified in their state safety plans.
The next question is there any funding available for youth training schools or programs that you are currently aware of?
Say it again?
Is there any funding available for youth training schools or programs that you are currently aware of?
Youth training schools?
Youth training schools or programs. I would assume that they may be referring, this is an assumption, they may be referring to peer-to-peer training schools or could be driver's ed schools? The question's not clear.
Well, through the new language, that would be the type of thing that we need to have states write into their new highway safety plan. So, one of those things. I mean, you can look at the list of suggested activities. So that's the type. One of the options, one of the 10 or 11 things listed, focuses on training and education training of youth leaders. A very general term. And I'm sure, it sounds like what the question is related to would fall under that category. Mm-hmm. So it is very broad, and it is, it's specific about needing to have a peer-to-peer component, but then it's very broad, providing these kind of 10 suggestions. And even if it's not included in those 10, we tried to think of everything, everything we've seen states do. We tried to get listed as an example, but even if it's not specifically listed there, a state can still be doing it as long as you're also, you're working with teams on it and you're engaging with teams. And we don't, arresting a team is not engagement. We just want to make sure, some states focus on team safety and they consider just, they'll work with law enforcement and they'll, set up some sort of checkpoint outside of a prom. That can be part of a team, an overall state effort focused on team, but that's not peer-to-peer. That is not working with teams themselves, to come up with prevention and education programs.
Good. Next question is, what are the experts' thoughts on advocating for a policy change and requiring decals to go on license plates that distinguish new drivers from other drivers?
They wanted experts on this, right?
They did.
I won't comment on that. I know there is concern on identifying putting a sticker on the back of a car, identifying a teen, raises some safety concerns. So I know that is a concern, but I honestly have no idea if there are specific. I'm just going to stop talking about that. Mm-hmm. Maybe the GDL. Cathy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety has not taken a formal position on that issue yet. I can offer that a study from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia was recently released. So if someone was interested in finding out more about how it has been effective, I would refer them to that study.
Good. Thank you very much. The next question is talking about parents now. Is parental education of GDL laws, teens' risks, etc., included in the approved strategies?
No, I don't think it's a specific requirement within the GDL section.
Mm-hmm. For peer-to-peer education, John, would that be something that if the youth were involved in educating the parents of teen drivers, would that be something that would work for that or no?
Well, it's like you could have a peer-to-peer component. The legislation doesn't say specifically what percentage of the program, if you dedicate a certain amount towards the teen traffic safety program. It doesn't say X amount needs to be the peer-to-peer amount. So I would say you'd have some sort of peer-to-peer component, and then in addition to that, as part of the optional component, you would do that.
Okay. And then the next question is, are these GDL laws required for each and every state?
Well, they're not required. It's an incentive grant program for each state to potentially reap the benefits from if they pass the life-saving laws.
Mm-hmm. And Cathy, I think you can answer this next question pretty quickly too. I'm referencing back to your PowerPoint. Question is, I understand we're waiting for certain rulings. However, is there a summary available of which states do and do not meet the certain requirements of the GDL incentive grant program?
Yes, we tried to provide that in the chart. That was part of my PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully people will find that helpful.
Yeah, that's been a great resource for our NOYS members too. So that's been something that we could look to. The next question is, how can states support driving schools with this funding? What efforts are being made to work with driving schools to improve training?
Again, I don't think there's a specific, the provisions that of how the money can be used are pretty broad, as John just mentioned, and there's nothing specifically about driving schools.
The next question is, did states receive additional funding in the 402 program, or is it level funded?
It's the same funding, so it's an added priority, and it's the same amount of funding as before, which last year was $234 million.
The next question, Amy and Luke, you might be able to help us out with. Bonnie from Michigan would like teen contacts to testify in an upcoming hearing on a bill for banning cell phones for teens on December the 5th at noon. And they say that you have her contact information, so we can contact her and follow up and try and make a connection there. And our emails, Bonnie, are going to be at the end of this presentation too, so you can directly email us and we'll start making those contacts for you. The next question is, I'm looking for evidence-based research that peer-to-peer programs work. I have found the 1995 study, but would like something more current.
Yeah, we've got some good, actually. GHSA just came up with some great resources related specifically on teen drivers, and has a good section on peer-to-peer that we encourage folks to read. I think, and there's a new publication. I think, Luke, did you guys just come out with a publication specifically on peer-to-peer?
No, I don't believe NSC has.
Yeah, if they reach out to me, I have a variety of different resources focusing on peer-to-peer, just, kind of the overall importance of it, just in general why it's a great idea, but also specific peer-to-peer interventions that various schools around the country and various states are utilizing and seeing dramatic improvement in safety.
And NOYS developed a community engagement guide on distracted driving, so that communities who want to address distracted driving, it's specifically looking at teens, and it includes peer-to-peer education, and it was evaluated by George Mason University, so that's also available too. It's 2 years old, so hopefully that's current and can be helpful as well. The next question is, are victim-to-peer educational interactions included in this bill?
Not specifically. No, it is not specifically. Victim-to-peer is not a specific mention. But if that was, if there's evidence of effectiveness of that, then I, would encourage you to, contact me, and then just talk about ways of incorporating that as part of a state strategy around reaching teens.
Great. We have a great question. Someone is asking if the December 3rd Distracted Driving Summit will be webcast. It's actually going to be a live webcast, so you can watch it live, and then it will be archived for a year. So if you go to NOYS.org, you can register to watch it over the internet. It's free. There's no charge to log in and watch it. And again, it will be archived, so you can refer back to it for a year. Great question. We're getting a lot of questions about whether or not this presentation can be emailed to everyone. It will be, the link will be sent to you where it will be archived, so you'll be able to capture it from that. This may be a comment. 402 goes to states. 403 are demonstration grants that NHTSA distributes directly from Washington. I think that was somebody answering the previous questions about funding that can come directly from NHTSA grants. So that was good clarification there. Okay. In California, an applicant for a driver's license who is 17 and 1/2 years of age is not required to complete courses in driver's education and behind-the-wheel training. To qualify for GDL grants, would California law have to be amended to require this age group to complete these courses to qualify for grant funds?
There, hold on one second, but I do not believe so. There's no driver's education requirement.
What does the panel think about the use of computerized distracted driving simulators? We have 5 in New Hampshire with great feedback from teens. Would grant funding be available for wider use? Staffing takes time.
Well, the simulators are a great way of educating individuals on the dangers of distracted driving, but I don't think any of the provisions in MAP 21 provide grant funding for the use of them.
Sandy, I want to go back and just add something to the answer to my last question.
For the California question?
Yes.
Okay.
It's still open. The rulemaking is still open, so there is, I guess, a possibility that the Secretary could prescribe that.
Okay. The next question is asking, is anyone looking at disconnecting the GDL requirements from age? Drivers are no longer rushing to get a license at age 16. Some are waiting until they are 18 or older to get licenses. This is nothing, there is nothing about 18 that makes you a safer driver. Is that it's that 2 years of experience. So is there any talk of an experience-based GDL?
Not that I'm aware of.
I haven't heard of that either. It's a good question, though, but I haven't heard that conversation yet. That will be our next webinar. How's that? John, have you?
No.
No, I haven't either. Does the state highway safety plan have to be submitted to the federal government by the governor, or is it something that has to be passed by a legislature and signed by the governor? Or is it different in every state?
So the governor has a designee, so it is under the governor's authority. That's a great question. I mean, it is different in every state. I don't know of a state where it has to go through the legislature. Do either of the other panelists know if there's states that require it to go through the legislature?
Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't.
I'm not aware of it either.
It's just a requirement that for them to receive the funding, it's more of like for them to receive this funding through the 402 program and some of these other ones, they're submitting their proposal and letting the federal government know how they're going to use the funding. So I'm not aware of any state where it has to go through, be approved by the legislature.
Going down through the questions. One question was if we will get a list of all of the participants of this webinar, and the answer to that is no, but you do get a list of all of the expert panelists on the next slide. Let's see, we're getting close now. What does the panel feel about the increase in monitors being installed in new cars? Why did the DOT allow this built-in distraction? That's the last.
By monitors, are you meaning more gadgets in the cars, or I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
I would read it as that, Luke.
Well, I mean, we're concerned about anything. I mean, some cars now are talking about putting Facebook or allowing you to do social media while you're driving. That's obviously a great concern to us. We think the less distractions there in the car, the better, and that's one of the reasons why we're pushing for distracted driving laws as well as technology solutions to stop that kind of behavior from happening in the car. So that's a great concern to us.
Oh, they sent us a clarification there. and he's clarified it by no knobs, icons instead. So I think
touchscreen, I think is what he's referring to. And again, anything that makes driving more distractive, we're concerned about.
Okay. And that was our last question. The final slide here has all of our emails on here, so you can contact us directly if you want clarification. This has been a very rich conversation. I'd like to personally thank John Terry for taking the lead in organizing this and making this happen, and Luke and Cathy for your expertise, and for all the work that everyone did in legislature to get us to where we are with this, but our job's not done. We're just beginning so that we can make movements in the state. We definitely have youth who want to help and want to be a part of this conversation and be part of the solution. So in your efforts, we ask you to reach out to the youth organizations and include youth in that. And if you have any other questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys and have a great day.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thanks, Andy.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.